Welcome to Heartspeed Podcast, episode 273, Finding Inner Peace. Well, hello there, wherever you're in the world. It's good to be back with you. It's good to be back home after a beautiful trip to Japan, meeting old friends, making new friends, visiting new sites, and really experiencing a vibrancy there, especially amongst the young people in Japan. Wonderful to see. I also saw a pattern that I'm seeing across the world, certainly in the last 2 months especially, where it feels that we've all reached a plateau. What we've been doing has been great, very successful, very enjoyable, being valuable, but it feels that we're being asked individually and collectively to move to a new octave, to take it up a notch. And I think that's being exacerbated in a really good way by this cosmic energy that's coming in, by an influx of energy coming into our library of DNA, wakening it up, by our star people, our star family coming closer, and our connection, I think, being enhanced to our higher self, that 90% of us that is watching our 10% activities. So this is a time where we need to celebrate what we've been doing and be ready for the next move, because I think 2024, 25, 26 are going to be really very active years, dynamic years, years of unexpected activity. And I think that we need to have ourselves ready for an expansion that's certainly, I think, going to blow our minds in the nicest way. And I am recording this at the time of the solstice, this winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere, 21st, 22nd of December. But you may be listening to it after that, but it still is relevant because the solstice, the word means sun standstill. So it's only obviously from our perception that the sun appears to stand still and then the light changes. But it is a time of deep reflection and deep connection to that inner peace, that peace that is beyond all understanding. And what I understand from that statement is when we are in that sun standstill, it's like being between the out-breath and the in-breath. It's about being at that point of singularity I spoke about, being totally present in the here and now. And when we're in that present state of here and now, there is no thinking, there is no understanding. There is just that sense of peace and connection. And if I'm going to use any word, an inner knowing that everything is exactly as it needs to be. An activity emerges from there, but it also returns to there with wisdom and understanding. But there's always that point that we sometimes forget to come back to, where there's just inner peace. The yes. And that's what I would like to share about this solstice, this time that everything that is ever going to happen in the years to come is coming from that moment of stillness. And it seems to be more important than ever to experience that over certainly this next couple of weeks. So finding yourself a time to do this. Now, as I was looking at the mythologies, understanding a little bit more about the solstice, several books write about it being a 3-day event, which I think is very interesting because it ties in nicely to my dark moon ritual, which is also 3 days. So we have the first day, the day of reflection, release, celebration. The second day of that peacefulness, that quiet, that connection. And that third day of being inspired by the future. So we could say we look at the past on the first day, we're very, very present on the second day, and we head for the future to be inspired on the third day. And you may choose to have 3 days when this particular ritual takes place, and you can even do it in one day. I'm giving you 1 day, you could do a third day of the third day and the third day. But the fact of the matter is, this is so important for us. So even in our breathing, we breathe out is phase 1. We hold our breath out, phase 2. We breathe in, phase 3. It's there in everything we do. And sometimes we don't value that moment of inner peace. But when we drop into it, our mind wants to obviously jump back or jump forward. But when we can just stay with it, there is this total expansion of consciousness that has nothing to do with thinking. It's like being the universe, being the galaxy, being everything that is in its most beautiful potential of choice. And then when I looked also at some of the rituals, you may well practice some of these rituals yourself. Obviously, this is a great time to light candles. And that's really not just inviting the light to come back, but it's actually carrying the light from the past through this time of the present into the future. It's encouraging that light, but also honoring the light, even in the darkness. You may choose to bring something into your life. And in the past, it was a log or several logs. And what would happen, and we do something very similar now if you celebrate Christmas, is we cut down a tree, maybe. And what they would do is take some of the logs off the trunk and they would burn those logs. And then they would take the top of the tree, deck it out with Christmas lights. And what you're doing is inviting in the new light. But the logs that you're burning, you're saying, I am celebrating the harvest of the last year. I'm celebrating who I've become. And I thank this wonderful tree for its gifts of both being able to transform the past, experience the present, and get ready for the future. Now, there are other things you might like to do. You can use oranges. Oranges often decorations, or baubles on your tree, all of them representing the sun, the light. Some people talk about not just 3 days, but 12 days. And of course, you may know about the 12 days of Christmas. Some say that was actually supposed to be connected to the solstice, not to Christmas Day. And you might want to write notes about what you've done and burn them in a fire if you have a fire there. So there are many different ways in which you can celebrate what is known as this Yuletide, this time of reflection, connection, and inspiration. And I thought we would do a simple meditation, or I'm really just wanting you to be taken into a space where the sunrise of the winter solstice is very significant. And this place is Newgrange in Ireland, which is the most beautiful round, what they call a tomb, but I like to call it a womb, a passage tomb. And what it is that there is this entry point where in front of which is this huge rock or stone, which has been carved with spirals, which very much represent this transitional period, this transformative period, and telling us that this is where the great mother energy, the female energy, is very present, because she's very much about this transformation and new birth. And at the entrance, there is this small box, or we should say a window, through which, if by any chance the sun is shining and there is not rain on the day of the solstice, you have the chance for the sunrise rays to pass through that box, along the passageway, and into this wonderful chamber at the back. And in this chamber at the back, there are bowls, stone bowls that nobody really knows why they're there, but we're going to use them as symbolizing ways in which we are bringing about the transformation within ourselves. So I'm going to suggest, you may wish to do this as a meditation. You may wish to just use this imagery for your meditation later on. But to imagine yourself at the back of this chamber. You're sitting facing that window, that box, seeing whether or not the sun is going to pass along the passageway and reach you. But before the sun does rise, we're going to go to the chamber, which is, if you're facing the sun, it's on the right of you. And that we're going to call the chamber of the past. And in this chamber of the past are all those things that you have done this year, 2023. And I'm going to use 3 levels of it. One is the level of inspiration. So what were you inspired to do this year? What ideas did you have? What dreams did you have? What ideas came from your higher consciousness and said, this is the year, this is the time? Now, you might have started something new. You may have stopped something. That's an inspiration. You may have started talking to someone. You may have stopped talking to someone. You may have been writing something, drawing something, creating something. What were you inspired to do? Maybe you want to write it down. And in that inspiration, it doesn't mean that you came to fruition. You may have started it and then found yourself going off in a different direction. This is at this moment just talking about inspiration. And for my own self, I was inspired to write a book about the earth energies and really the connection between ourselves, our chakra system, our intuitive self, and the nature kingdoms. I've always wondered how it is that I can feel so much when I'm in these different places. So I was inspired to write a couple of chapters of introduction, send them off to my publisher as a proposal, and was rejected, or I didn't hear anything else. And yes, there was a bit of me that went, but you know, there was a bit of me that was quite pleased, because I didn't really want to get into a deadline to achieve something. It's not usually how I write. I usually write the whole book and then send it to the publisher. And as I've learned in the past, when something doesn't work out, especially when I'm writing or teaching, it's because something else is more important for my higher self to put into practice. Sometimes I'm just inspired to get on the path, then let it go, or what I thought I was doing on the path, and then go into a different direction. I wonder if that's ever happened for you. Several times, in fact, writing books or running courses, I thought, this is it, I've got all the information. And then things changed and I found myself doing something completely different, which was, if I may say, much more enjoyable and much more inspirational for me. So has that happened to you this year, this 2023? Were you inspired and then kind of took off in a different direction? Maybe you met someone who actually said, well, that's a great idea, but let's go here. Or you met someone at a seminar who you found to be taking you somewhere that you would never have gone if you had not met that person. So write down all of that. And then write down, how did you nurture that idea? So it's not just the thinking of it, of course. It's, what did you do? How did you nurture it? And for me, it was sitting down, making time to write a book. And I'm very happy with the new book that I'm writing at this time. But did you plant something new? Did you buy art gear so you could do artistry? Did you start a course? Did you join someone? How did you nurture your idea? In other words, how did you bring it into fruition? How did you manifest it? Did you join up with someone else and run a course, for instance? Because it's all wonderful to have an idea, but not necessary if you don't take it any further. So how did you manifest it? And then the third stage, how did this manifestation connect you more fully to yourself? What did you learn about yourself? How did you grow? What was the wisdom you brought back into your heart? Did you connect more fully to your higher self? Did you connect more fully to your intuition? Did you connect more fully to your guidance? Did you find new connections, new friends, new partner? How did you connect more fully? Now, they're the three parts of any creative experience: inspiration, nurturing, connection. And once we do that, we bring the energy of that whole experience into our heart, and our light becomes stronger. So I suggest you spend a little time writing that out. Then once you've done that, you can burn those papers you're writing and say, I've taken from that story, that experience, what I needed, and I let go of the rest. So lighting a fire, making a small bonfire with some papers, what are you letting go of? So what have you been inspired by? What have you created? What have you connected to? And what are you releasing? And it may be that through your connection to yourself, you're ready to release something. Maybe a friendship, maybe a partner, maybe a job. But we can only do that once we've learned why we created it in the first place. So that's that first stage, that letting go, reflection, celebration, release. We're still there in the back of that chamber at Newgrange with our fire lit, making space for something new. And as we make space for something new, we can then spend some time in our center, in that peace, knowing that the past is totally taken care of. We don't need to go back there. Everything we've needed, we brought into our heart. And spending some time just being still, inner peace, finding that peace that doesn't need to be understood but can be felt. And then to look to the chamber on the left, and you may have ideas that you're wanting to put into practice. Oh, that's what I want to do for 2024. Or maybe you just want to be open to what comes. And you may well feel how I want to feel in the future rather than what I want to do. It's the most powerful form of manifestation. How do I want to feel when I'm doing this? And what I suggest, you might decide to plant a few seeds, even in a pot or a bulb, or like a daffodil bulb or something like that. And when you're doing that, get the soil, put your hands in that soil and put into that soil every way you want to feel. How do you want to feel when that seed is growing? How do you want to feel in a new relationship, in a new job, whatever it is that you're inspired to do? How do you want to feel when I'm writing my new book? So let the soil and the water in the soil hold that intention. Plant your beautiful bulbs or seeds in that and let that grow. And as the shoots rise up away from the soil, see that expressing how you want to feel in the future. I hope this is giving you some ideas of how to work with this solstice energy. Celebration, release, staying in the present, inspiration. And in that day of celebration, celebrate the light inside you, not just the light of the sun returning. Because when that sun or those rays of the sun come along that passageway, it's not us worshipping the sun. The sun is worshipping us. The sun is saying, I light up and reflect your own light. So as you light your candles, as you see the sunrise, understand you're seeing yourself in all your beauty and glory as it should be. I wish you a glorious solstice, a happy Christmas, happy New Year. We'll be talking before that. But let this be the most amazing holidays because you deserve it. You're in exactly the right place. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the HeartSpeak podcast with Dr. Christine Page. Please check out all HeartSpeak episodes in the podcast archive section on www.christinepage.com. HeartSpeak is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Tumblr, and now playing on Amazon Music and iHeart Radio. You can also watch the archive podcast on Christine's channel, on YouTube, and now on Rumble. Connect with Christine on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook group, The Great Mother Calling. Do share with family, friends, colleagues. Join us next time for another edition of HeartSpeak.